All right, so this is day 2 of residual plots, and really day 1 didn't introduce you to much of the residual plot itself. We went back over how to enter your data, how to fill in your residuals and get the least square regression line, the scatter plot. And so today's really going to be that next step of understanding what the residuals really mean. A residual plot can help you determine if a linear model is a good fit for the scatter plot data. So sometimes we get data on a scatter plot and it's not linear. Sometimes it's a curve. So we need to be able to determine whether or not what we are using, meaning a least square regression line, is that the best way to represent our data with something linear. A residual plot has an x-axis that is the same as the scatter plot, but the y-axis is the residuals. So what you'll notice is when we're graphing one of these, whatever is here on the x-axis, it's going to have the same x-axis as the residual plot. Okay, so match each scatter plot with its corresponding residual plot. So what we will do is we will look at the scatter plot 1 and say, down here at the bottom, the dots are all really close to the fitted line. And as we move to the right, the dots get further and further away from the fitted line. So what we're looking for is a residual plot, one of the 3 choices down here below, where the dots start out really close to the x-axis and then get further and further away. And that would be residual plot C, where early on, towards the left side of the x-axis, they're very close. And then as we move to the right, they get more and more spread out and they get sort of more exaggerated. So residual plot C would go with scatter plot 1. That means you're just talking about the distance that the dots are away from the fitted line. So on scatter plot 2, do you notice how they're scattered above, below, consistently scattered above and below all the way along the fitted line? That would be residual plot B, where they are scattered consistently above and below as you move to the right. So that would go with scatter plot 2. Residual plot A. Now, you notice how the residual plot is kind of curved, how you've got points that are above the x-axis, and then they all go below the x-axis, and then they all come back above. Well, you kind of have the same thing on this scatter plot 3, where you've got some dots above, and as you move along, they're all below the fitted line, and then they start coming back above the fitted line again. So this one would be scatter plot 3, and that would be a curved pattern, because you can see the dots curve from above the fitted line to below the fitted line and the back above again, the same as their residual plot. This one, residual plot C, we would say that it is pretty consistent when it has low x values, and then it gets more variability as x gets larger. So more variability. That also means less reliable. More variability as x gets larger. All right. Help Juliana analyze the results for the pizza parlors from problem 449 as described below. Now, you probably don't at this point still have the data from the pizza parlor in your calculator. If you want to do this one along with me, you'll probably want to pause the video at this point and enter in the data. And you will see that the data is on this page as well. You would just be entering in toppings number 1 for list 1 and price for list 2. Residuals are not there yet. So mark the residuals on the scatter plot that you created in problem 449. If you want to purchase an inexpensive pizza, you should go to a store. Should you go to a store with a positive or negative residual? So let's start with just refreshing our memory here on the graphing calculator. I have already cleared my memory. I turned diagnostics on. I went in to edit my table, and I plugged in the number of toppings in list 1, and I plugged in the cost in list 2. Once I have those 2 things, the next step is to graph. So I'm going to turn my scatter plot on by going second stat plot. And that one is currently off. I'm going to turn it on. I'm also going to make sure, right, that the scatter plot icon is lit up. I'm going to press graph, and you'll notice I can't see all of the points. So I'm going to remember to go to zoom and then down to zoom stat. So I'm only looking at the points. Now, those are the points for the number of toppings on the x-axis. So 0 toppings, 1 topping, 2 toppings as we move to the right, and the price of the pizza with that number of toppings. We need to get this residuals column filled in. We cannot do that until we have a least square regression line. And that step was stat. And we're asking the computer to calculate, or the calculator to calculate for us a least square regression line, which was option 8. And we would hit enter. We need to remember to ask the calculator to store that data somewhere. And we're going to do a variable statistic. So that's the vars button. If I slide this up just a little bit, remember the vars button just sort of below the arrows. I'm going to press vars. And because I want to store it as a y equals function, I'm going to go to yvars, and I'm going to pick number 1, which is function. And it's the only one I've got, so I'm going to store it in y1. And then I'm going to remember to go down and ask it to actually calculate that for me. And I got what I would use for an equation. I have y equals 7.74, and I'll switch that to an approximately since I'm going to round these numbers, plus 1.36x. Remember, we said that meant that we should be charging about $1.36 for each extra topping, and that the fitted line showed us that a standard pizza with 0 toppings was $7.74. Now that I have that fitted line, I should be able to press graph and see it show up in my scatter plot. And if we're thinking about what a residual plot for this is going to look like, I've got one that's just about on the line, and then I go above, below, below, above, 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 below. So I do have points scattered above and below as I move from left to right along the fitted line. And I'm going to ask it to edit my table again. So number 1 there under stat edit. This is the step that I'm still noticing people were struggling with. Make sure you go up to L3 and you select the whole list, enter. It's going to bring your cursor down and say, okay, what do you want me to do to list 3? And I want you to second stat, and second stat brings up lists, and I want you to fill in that list with the residuals. And if you don't see residuals there, it's probably because you forgot to turn diagnostics on. And so now you're saying, yep, I want list 3 to be filled in with a list of residuals. And I'm going to hit enter. And you can see that I shortened mine up on my table to only 2 digits after the decimal point because it's money. So that first pizza that has 1 topping that they were charging $10.50 for, that means they are $1.40 above the predicted value. The next pizza that had, and you can see it in my table on the calculator, the next pizza had 3 toppings and they were charging $9. They were actually charging $2.81 below the predicted value from the fitted line. Then we've got a 0.83, negative 0.88, 0.69, which I rounded because the 0.68 on the calculator was followed by a 7, 1.97. I'm going to grab the next one here, 0.26. I'm rounding up because it's followed by an 8. And then I'm going to use the arrows to go down and get the next one that's missing there, negative 1.46, and rounding because the 4-5 is followed by a 5. Now over here on the right, you'll see that I've started to draw a residual plot. And so for a 1 topping pizza, it was $1.40 more than our fitted line. So I went over to 1. I went up to $1.40 and put a dot because it was $1.40 more than the x-axis, which was number of toppings. And then for 3, I had to go down to 2.81. I went all the way down here to negative $2.81 because that 3 topping pizza at Vittori's was coming in at $2.81 below the predicted value. I've got the 4 topping at 0.83. I've got the 6 topping at negative 88 cents. I've got the 3 topping at positive 69 cents. I've got the 5 topping all the way up here at 1.97, almost at 2. I don't yet have this 0, which is about 26 cents. So I would go 0 toppings. I'd go up to about 26 cents. And then 2 toppings, which is negative $1.46. I'm going to go down here between negative $1 and negative $2. And each one of those points shows the 0 topping and how much it is either above or below the fitted line. the one topping, in this case, how much it is above the fitted line. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positive residuals, those are all pizza places charging more than the predicted value. And then the 1, 2, 3 that have negative residuals, those are the 3 shops that are charging you less than the predicted value. So I'm going to stop the problem here. If you want to do the next one with me live, you are going to need to edit your table. So in order to do that, remember, when you're done with a set of data, and this question, we're done with it. It asked us to interpret the scatter of the points on the residual plot. We said before that they were scattered both above and below the x-axis as we moved from left to right. So a fitted line, a linear regression line, did make sense because the residual plot did look like it was equally scattered both above and below as we moved to the right. If we are going to clear our data here, we want to remember we can press clear, we can press second quit. You want to get back to a blank screen. Second memory. And we want to go down to number 7 because we're going to reset. And we can press 7 or we can go down to 7, enter, and we want to reset all of the RAM, which is number 1. And we want to say, yes, we want to reset that data. And when we hit enter, the calculator is going to say that it's cleared, second quit. And the very first thing is to go second catalog and go down to make sure that we turn on diagnostics for the next problem. So anytime you are completely done with a question, make sure that you reset everything and you turn diagnostics back on and that the calculator tells you it has been done. So I'm ready to flip over to the back side, which is going to be the second video.